Hmm.
Well, we're sitting in Marsh's library here. I'm sitting in one of the cages in Marsh's library. Marsh's is an old library. It's 300 years old. It's located right at the heart of South Inner City, Dublin, and nothing much has changed here for the last 300 years. We have a large and important collection of books. And most people think of the library in terms of the 17th and the 18th century, but we have a very interesting part in the history of the 20th century and the struggle for independence. So in 1916, when the rebels took up positions around Dublin in fighting the British Empire, one of the positions was very close to us here. It's just behind me out the window is now the National Archives, but it used to be Jacob's Biscuit Factory, and the rebels took up positions there. And between us and the rebel garrison was the Dublin Metropolitan Police Barracks. So if there had been any real fighting in the area in 1916, the real likelihood is that the library would have been completely destroyed. It would have been destroyed in the same way that whole areas of the north inner city around O'Connell Street were laid waste in 1916. However, the library did sustain some bullet damage in 1916. Strangely, there was no bullet damage during the Easter week itself, during the week of the fighting, but the British didn't engage throughout the whole week. They seem to have locked down the entire area around here rather than fighting. But after the rebels surrendered on the Sunday following Easter, a number of hours after the surrender, a British Army machine gun located in the Ivy buildings fired on the library. A machine gun burst. And our records from the period show that the windows and the shutters and the roof were damaged, but also a number of books were wounded. It's quite interesting that our records from 1916 record that 5 books were wounded, almost as if they were individuals or people in their own right. And you can see the entry wound for the bullet in 1916. You often don't get to see this, but you get to see the exit wound as well. And the British Army machine gun was located about 300 metres from the point of impact in the Ivy buildings, and it gives you a sense of the impact and the velocity of that bullet, that from 300 metres the bullet can travel right through the book. One of the ways in which we use the book is often showing it to school groups and school kids who come in, because when you tell them the story of the 1916 bullet book, the response of many school children, and particularly boys, is that that's cool. Well, we often open the book up for school groups like that and show them what a bullet does to your insides, and generally they tend to not think it's so cool in that situation. And really, if we open it here, if I open it and show it to you, you can see the path of the bullet through the book, from the spine through the volume of the book and out the other side. And you can imagine, if you think of how hard it is to tear even 5 or 6 sheets of paper, or even to tear 12 sheets of paper together, to be able to rip through the books at 300 metres distance is quite a feat. It shows you something about the velocity they were travelling. And as we say to children, that's what a bullet does to your inside. So not only does it rip through as it's spiralling through it, not only that it rips through the paper and human flesh and bone as well, but the sonic waves and the pressure waves compact the paper as well. So it really makes a mess of the paper in the book, and by extension, as we explain to children, it really makes a mess of a human body. So bullets are not something that just have an exterior effect and don't have any consequences. You can tell from this physical book, which had survived for so long safely here in Dublin, and it comes safely to Dublin through a circuitous route to escape being burnt in France in 1685. You can see just how much trauma a bullet does to an item that it hits.
I was wondering about the cages actually. What were they used for originally?
Well, the cages are the instruments of librarians' torture in the 18th and 19th century. Essentially, the library realised very early on that readers impose a certain series of demands on libraries and librarians, that they need access to books on a constant basis. And essentially I'm sitting in one of the cages, which was the way in which they managed readers in the 18th and 19th century. When people wanted to read books, particularly precious books or small books, they were locked into one of these cages. The librarian took a list of the books that people were using, and then they were locked into the cage, and then at the end of the day, when they rang the bell, and they did have to ring a bell, we still have one of the bells here, the reader was checked for the books, and once the appropriate number of books in good condition were returned to the librarian, they were free to go. So it's a strange system to our modern eyes, which is so customer orientated and customer friendly. And the idea that readers would come here, would be locked in a cage and pretty much left all day. We still do have people who want to be locked into these cages as readers, but we always have to demur and say that it's not possible. We always cite health and safety reasons that we can't lock them into the cages.